Well, what about the Venezuelan perspective? Well, journalist Camila Escalante has been on the ground in Venezuela, covering that country deeply as that country prepares for a U.S. invasion or attack. Here's a bit of her report. She's been meeting with local officials and citizens who are trying to fortify their country from this coming attack. And Camila joins us now to talk about her experience talking to the Venezuelan people, talking to local officials there. And I know you're about to head back to that country very, very shortly. Camila, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for the invite.
So it seems like this is inevitable and it's imminent from all of the reports that we're hearing from the United States side. Even U.S. members of Congress seem to be saying that this is imminent. It's about to happen here. What are the Venezuelan people telling you?
Well, on the one hand, there's an ongoing preparation. There are civilian militias that are preparing across the country that are linked to the Chavista formations. That is, the people who are part of the PSUV, the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, which is the largest, most powerful political force in Venezuela, but one of the largest political parties in Latin America in general. And they have base organizations. They have local organizations that have their own leadership structures where they have communes, they have proposed projects and all sorts of things. And so within that, they form their own defense militias in order to complement the National Bolivarian Armed Forces of Venezuela, the military, and of course the police. And so the police and military and the government are on watch. They're looking at what, U.S. authorities are saying, what sort of movements are happening in the Caribbean, in these different countries that have allowed the United States military to set up base. But regular people have been under siege for so long. This is a country that has been attacked by 1,000 unilateral coercive measures or illegal sanctions that are part of an economic war and a hybrid war against Venezuela. These are people who have lived through economic crisis. They have, that is all linked to the large-scale theft of Venezuelan assets abroad, including Venezuelan gold, including the theft of Citgo. And so this has really affected the country. And we're years and years into the threats against Venezuela and the threats to coup the government. President Maduro has even survived multiple assassination attempts and plots that have been thwarted, mercenary plots, incursions, threats from Venezuela's borders on all sides. So it's getting a little tired, and I think people just want to be with their families and celebrate Christmas. Christmas is a really big deal. It's a Christian country. Most people celebrate a very extended holiday season that starts very early. And the economy has really recovered in recent years. And so they're focused on buying things, preparing for their big foods. They celebrate with hallacas, which is a traditional Christmas food, among other, dinner foods that they have there. And that's what people are doing. So I interviewed a lot of people. Yes, the most militant people who are part of those militias and those neighborhood groups would talk about the threats against their country and how they're against invasion, they're against this ongoing meddling in their country, and they want the United States to leave them alone. But a lot of people are also just not really paying attention to the news anymore because it's so tiring when your country takes the headlines internationally all of the time, and you hear year after year that the opposition is planning something in conjunction with the United States and other foreign powers, and that they're acting as foreign agents in the country in a treasonous, traitorous way to try to overthrow the government. So people are kind of just over it at this point. They're not scrolling through Twitter. They're not chronically online. They're just living their normal lives and going to work.
The wellness company's Cyber Monday sale is live for 48 hours only. It's your once-a-year chance to outsmart Big Pharma and stock up on doctor-formulated wellness at great prices. You can save up to 25% site-wide, including 20% off all emergency kits and memberships. It's the perfect time for holiday shopping and gifting health to the people that you care for the most. The wellness company only drops deals this deep once a year. So give your body the regimen it needs to maintain optimal health as you complete another grateful year of life while sliding into 2026 totally ready to be even better. So stay prepared with emergency kits, stock your cabinet with premium nutraceuticals, and check out their memberships as well as you plan for 2026 health cost analysis. The Wellness Company has everything you need to cyber shop your way to healthy habits. The sale ends on Tuesday night, December 2nd. So head on over to twc.health/redacted for serious Cyber Monday savings. Discounts automatically apply at checkout. Shop twc.health/redacted and give yourself the gift of well care. So do what we hear in the United States and what the corrupt media in the United States tells us is that Venezuela is a narco state and that the flood of fentanyl pouring into the United States is coming from these high-speed fentanyl boats that, thank God, the Secretary of War and President Trump are bombing right now. Like that's the message coming out of the mainstream media in the United States of America, mostly, at least most of the conservative media. But what's the truth? Is why is this being perpetrated on the Venezuelan people? Is it because of drugs?
Well, it's simply because the United States needs access to Venezuela's vast oil reserves and other natural resources, and to gain territorial control to be able to control both that area of Latin America, including the waters surrounding Venezuela, and to end Venezuela's influence over other countries, because Venezuela is a country that has chosen its own path, has its own model towards socialism, and it's influencing and empowering through material support other countries to be able to liberate themselves from the domination of imperialist powers, namely the United States. These other countries have been under imperial colonial domination for hundreds of years, even though they've all had their own supposed independence processes, but they still don't have the levels of development necessary to truly liberate themselves from these other countries. And one of the things that they need is energy. They need to be able to become energy sustainable, independent, whatever it is, and they don't have a whole lot of money. And Venezuela has helped them through Petrocaribe, through different initiatives, primarily the countries of the Bolivarian Alliance, ALBA, and has given them subsidized fuel, and this has really helped them. And in other ways, they're cooperating, through medical cooperation that involves Cuba. They help with Conviasa, the state airline, that provides a lot of, necessary aid when things like weather-related disasters happen in these Caribbean countries. Venezuela has reached out to many other countries and, has tried to come together to provide alternatives. And it provides an ideological alternative and an economic alternative, which is this model that they have of the communes, of radically changing their model in order to move towards a more socialistic model, which Cuba and Venezuela have their own models, and other countries are striving for in some way as well. And so the United States sees them as a kingpin, and they want to try to topple this government to install their own U.S.-friendly puppet or ventriloquist dummy or whatever it is, in order to sell off Venezuela's resources the way you would from an Avon catalog or a Mary Kay catalog. Maria Corina Machado and the different U.S. lawmakers who are involved in, organizing these plots and allying with these, CIA-backed actors in Venezuela want to simply take Venezuela, parcel it out to the highest bidder, and really just finish with Venezuela as it is. And so this is what it's all about. They want to go after Cuba, they want to go after Venezuela, but they know they have to go for Venezuela first. And Trump seemed to have at one point thought that this was his opportunity to do so, but he's seeing that the optics aren't very good, and that people, including the United States and his own party, are not, or at least supporters or voters of his party, aren't on board.
Well, and you hear that, you hear the MAGA people, like, who, the types I'm talking about, who like lick President Trump's feet wherever he walks. Oh, it's the narco terrorists. Like, that's what we're stopping. It's the Venezuelan child trafficking operation. Newsflash, the United States is one of the largest purveyors of child trafficking in the world. Guatemala, but why Ukraine? Ukraine is a massive child trafficking operation, yet we can pick and choose like who we defend in all of this. It's all garbage. We all know it's about the oil and the Chinese who have helped, of course, to try to actually refine some of this oil, which, is not the best oil in the world when it's pulled out of the ground. It requires quite a bit of refining, and the Chinese have been able to help. So the Chinese sphere of influence in Latin America, the oil, the Chinese, the Russians' sphere of influence there. This is exactly why the Trump administration seems to be moving in this direction. Sorry to just monologue there, but I feel like for anyone still falling for the drug argument, they need to get their heads examined.
Right, because we have reports. We have reports that the United States itself relies on. They have their own DEA reports. They have reports that are put out on different countries by the State Department. We have the UN World Drug Reports and reports by the EU that are all elaborated with the help of the different governments of the region. And Venezuela has not factored in any significant way into any of the main, most credible drug reports, even though we know that these drug reports can be used in a political way, in a politicized way, in order to go after these countries. Really, Venezuela hasn't factored. And the United States knows, and the Trump regime and Marco Rubio themselves know, that the main drug routes for cocaine are on the Pacific Ocean. They have nothing to do with the Caribbean, very little to do, and that Venezuela has actually done a pretty good job at intercepting some of these drug shipments and making sure that their waters are not being used for that, whereas Colombia has had a very challenging time for many decades, and now Ecuador is the main corridor through which drugs move, not just to the United States and Central America, but also southward and around South America to get all the way to Africa, Asia, and Europe. And of course, nobody talks about the demand. The fact is the United States is a country that has very deep social problems. I've lived in many countries of the world. I have worked in many countries of the world. I have never anywhere seen the level of addiction and dependency anywhere that I've been that exists in the United States. And this is a public health crisis, but it's also a different type of societal crisis. Why do so many people in the United States need drugs in order to survive? And why does it wreck families? And why is there such a high prison population in the United States? Why is there so much crime and crime related to drug use and violence and domestic abuse and things like that? It simply doesn't exist on that scale in other countries. There are drugs being produced in South America, namely cocaine, in Ecuador, in Bolivia, Peru, and in Colombia. And you don't see people using drugs or certainly not using fentanyl. That's like non-existent in most of Latin America. The way you do in the United States. So there's a serious problem there, and it's going to have to be dealt with by the United States, or in the case of Canada and Europe, by those governments, because the people are sick, but that has nothing to do with these foreign countries. It sets a very dangerous precedent in which you could just say that, that someone has like chickenpox or measles, and that Zimbabwe is sending it to people via, like crates of donuts. I mean, right. You can just say anything at this point. You're just pointing the finger at a completely different country, which has nothing to do with fentanyl.
No, we like to point the finger at other people. We never like to take responsibility for our own addictions in the United States. It's like, again, I brought up the child trafficking thing. Whatever Venezuela's child trafficking reputation is, well, guess what? In the United States, there's an incredible demand for children. There's an incredible demand for sex slavery in the United States. Maybe we should tackle that, because you're always going to have suppliers if your demand is off the freaking charts for fentanyl, for sex trafficking, the millions of children that are sold around the United States. Maybe we should look ourselves in the mirror first, close our border and try to fix ourselves before bombing other countries and blaming them for our problems. But that's what we like to do in the United States, apparently. Camila, thank you. I know you're heading back to Venezuela. Be safe. In the next few days. Yeah, be safe. I mean, and I'm not going to ask you about your travel plans, given the fact that the airlines are shut down and there's no flights. But
Well, there are fewer flights. There have always been issues with flights because of the sanctions imposed, obviously externally by the United States and these other countries on Venezuela, but they're still operating since the Truth Social post made by President Trump. That hasn't changed anything in the last 72 hours. The flights that were scheduled to leave on Sunday, Monday, or Saturday, Sunday, and Monday following that post have continued, both domestic and international flights by those major airlines, which are Stellar, Conviasa, Copa, and a number of other flights. Of course, some airlines did in fact get banned, but the rest of them continue as normal. So, this is just a country that's trying to live normally. People just want to be able to access commercial flights, travel, leave, return, and not have any problems, but they're under constant threat.
Well said. Camila, thank you for your perspective on this and your deep research and journalism that's taken place in Venezuela. Thank you so much. Safe travels back to Venezuela, and we'd love to check in with you over the next few days.
Thanks for having me again.
You bet. Thank you so much. Safe travels. Okay.